This is a Rogue Media Network podcast. This is Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Central Texas Life. Ann Harder here, and today we are going to talk about a legend, and that is a show that is happening in Salado, the village of Salado, and here to talk about it is a legend herself, Jackie Mills from Salado. Jackie, it's so good to have you here today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Now, we've met before. Anybody that knows me knows Salado is my happy place. I love the village of Salado. I love to just go there and do some shopping or whatever. Was so concerned when kind of the hard times happened with the road construction, and I know you lived through all that. But what we're here to talk about is the Legends of Salado, which is the fabulous show that is put on every summer.
For the past 30 years.
30 years. This is a milestone, and Jackie, you wrote it. So let's get right to it. This wonderful show. First of all, would you have anticipated when you put pen to paper 3 decades ago or more that here, this many years later, it'd still be staging this show with more than 100 people involved?
I wrote it for 45 people. But we've never had just 45 people. I think it's up to about 114 now in the cast and crew and all the workers. So it has grown. And at first, people would come to me and say, my grandmother and grandfather helped settle Salado. Oh. And I'd like to be in the play too. And I said, okay, what's your name? And I'll write you one line in the play. And pretty soon, that happened so many times that the director came to me and said, Jackie, I don't think you better write any more one-liners. Said, this play's going to last 3 days if we don't watch out. So I had to quit doing that. But it did, people wanted to be in it. And because their relatives had helped settle Salado. Yeah. So it was my pleasure to write a one-liner.
Well, it's such a beautiful community, and it does have a storied history. But I think what's really significant for folks to know is that this has been recognized by the Library of Congress as the official record of life in the 1800s. And that's a pretty significant thing. How did all that come about, that your play would be recognized by the Library of Congress?
Well, because so many people had seen it.
Yeah.
It didn't happen all at once, but after a while, well, let me give you an example. My cousin was visiting me from San Antonio, and so I didn't sit on the back row. I sat in the middle with Patricia, and there were 2 men sitting in front of us. One of them was an elderly man, and the other one was a young man with a white cowboy hat on. And so you had to look around so you could see past that white cowboy hat. But the elderly man was telling the younger man everything that was going to happen and the whole story. And I couldn't watch the show for watching, what was going on in front of me. And so at intermission, I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, I think you've seen this show before. And he said, 16 times. And I was so shocked.
Has he been in the show?
No.
No, he hadn't been in it?
No. And I thought, well, I don't know that my husband would want to go to a show 16 times. He must have had a wife that made him come, in the first place. But he was so enthused in telling this young man about everything that was going to happen. He must have liked it. So I think that's how word got around. I've thought back on it. I was so shocked that I didn't even ask him where he was from or his name.
You don't know that he was from the Salado area or not?
No, he wasn't.
He wasn't?
And we have a lot of people from San Antonio, Waco, clear. There are 12 entry points all through Texas, and people come into Texas from those entry points.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is information in magazines that are placed in those entry points, so they know to come in. So we get a lot of people,
a lot of tourists. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, Salado is just such a lovely place to go, just to spend some time. Anyway, when you were writing it, were there certain aspects of the history of Salado that you knew we've got to have that in there?
Oh yes, there were. I love to research. And I have to make myself quit researching and start writing. But it was very entertaining for me to read all about the history of Salado in Central Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And there were many things that I did put in there. And I tried to write it in how people spoke just before the Civil War and during the Civil War. So it was
the authenticity of the time period.
The speech, yes,
the speech.
and what words that were used.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of the Civil War scenes I actually took from relatives writing letters
Mm-hmm.
Back from the war, and I had all those letters from the Civil War. So I used them. And then,
Particularly
of course,
for speach patterns and so
Mm-hmm.
forth. That's really where you get that.
and Sam Houston, visited Salado.
Yes, he did. He made a speech, I think, from the
He made several speeches.
right there from the stagecoach end. Yeah.
Well, I took all the speeches that he had made,
Uh-huh.
researched them, and wrote one speech. I didn't have the time. I'd used up a lot of time on those one-liners, so I had to be very careful about how many times Sam Houston spoke, too.
Right. Well, so what exactly is the time span we will see in this show?
Just before the Civil War.
Before the Civil War.
Say a year before the Civil War. During the Civil War, the battle scenes, what was going on at home, and then coming back to devastation.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no industry, only the cattle drives brought in industry.
Which, of course, the Chisholm Trail,
Mm-hmm.
right through Salado.
And
Back
there's
there in Salado Creek, I love telling this story, you can still see the wagon ruts from when they would travel in the creek bed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even when they started the railroad, there's a hill there in Salado that
Mm-hmm.
they planned for the railroad to come through there. It didn't happen, but the land was prepared for it, and it's still prepared.
Still
for
prepared
it.
for
We
it,
could
yeah.
still, but
Yeah.
so there's a lot of history there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so much fun to read about it,
Yeah.
and then I hate to shorten it, but you've got to stop somewhere.
That's right. It's a show.
911, what's your emergency?
Do you hear that? It's coming from the house.
It's coming from inside the house? Do you mean? Could it be?
The Poltergeist. New from Rogue Media. Two haunted hotties talking about haunted places. Every episode, we dive deep into the darkest places and give you a bit of history.
We're getting spooky in all the right places.
You've gobbled your last ghoul.
Follow along for the craziest and spookiest stories with Debbie's Dark Tourism. The Stanley Hotel,
Winchester House,
The Alamo,
Hotel Monte Vista.
and more spooky places. Find us at _Poltergals. POLTERGALS.
Look over your shoulder. It's us,
The Poltergals. Wherever you consume the podcast, you can find us there.
Hey y'all, I'm April,
Hi, I'm Caroline.
and we have a new podcast for you. What's it called, Caroline?
Bloody Happy Hour.
It's going to be your new favorite guilty pleasure. We're going to talk about some bloody stuff. Serial killers, true crime,
Rape.
rapists. Why not join us? We'll have a good time.
You literally never know. I don't know what I'm going to say. Bloody Happy Hour. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
What are we doing here, Rusty? What are we going to do?
Yep, we're doing the King of the Hill rewatch podcast.
King of the Hill
Yes, sir.
Rewatch Podcast. Yeah, so we're going to go through one episode at a time. Come along for the ride with us.
Come check it out.
And give me a good, like Dale Gribble quote to go out on. Wingo!
Yeah, Wingo.
Wingo!
Wingo.
All right, well, join us for the King of the Hill Rewatch Podcast.
Deep in the heart of Texas, that drinks his brew and he spits his chew. Deep in the heart of Texas, the TV blares but no one cares. Deep in the heart of Texas, here we go.
So let's talk about the venue. Now tell me, where is this staged?
The amphitheater is on Royal Street, which is only about 2 blocks from downtown.
Okay.
So it's
Kind of behind where the Salado Glass Works is, in that section of town.
where the Stagecoach Inn is, and
Right.
the Stagecoach Inn was, of course, there
Right.
at the time.
Right. Yes, and they've gone back to the original name, Shady Villa Hotel.
That's right. And in the play, we don't call it we didn't call it the Stagecoach Inn.
No.
I named it the Shady Villa.
Shady
just
Villa,
like it
and
was
so
named then.
and so now it is the Shady Villa Inn, but still the Stagecoach Inn restaurant.
Yes.
That kept that name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that homage to history that just recently happened within the last year or so. How many people can come to? I mean, how big is the venue for your
Well, the
spectators?
the amphitheater will seat about 600 people.
600. Wow, it's huge.
So, of course, when I said I would take over Table Rock Amphitheater, it was being used by the village artists, and I would go over there, and a whole bunch of us artists would get together, and on a certain day of every month, and go over there and paint, and gossip, and have fun. But it was then I met the people that had originally built the amphitheater, and the Goodnights, a very famous name in history,
as in the
too.
Goodnight Loving Trail.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, and it seems like all the Goodnights are related.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think I took over probably in 1991, and it took me about 9 months to write the play, do the research,
Mm-hmm.
and write the play. And it was at the same time as I was writing the play, I realized how much we needed. We needed sets, we needed costumes, we needed...
Right, putting on a show is not inexpensive.
Oh. And when I took over, there was only $1.34 in the bank for Table Rock.
Wow.
So we really had to start advertising. There was that too.
Mm-hmm.
And doing so many of the other things that most of the time when I was writing plays, I just wrote them. You know, I didn't have to worry about costumes and
No.
the words, and it was It was different.
Yeah. But you say you've got more than 100 people in the cast and crew.
Mm-hmm.
And you've also kind of worked it to where there's a scholarship that has been
Yes.
set up. Tell me about that, if you would, Jackie.
Well, the first scholarship that we gave was from the first play in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
And $250. That's all we could spare, $250. And the young man that received that was very grateful.
I'm sure.
And then every year we had a little bit more and a little bit more. And to date, we have given away about $200,000.
Oh, my goodness.
So it's been lucrative, yet it's a 501c3 organization.
Correct.
Nobody gets paid.
Right.
I don't get paid for writing the
It's
plays.
all volunteer, yeah.
All volunteer.
But as you say, there's expenses involved with putting on any kind of a show. And
Right.
yeah.
So it's not an easy task, but it's so fulfilling.
Yeah.
And you get to watch kids. In the past 30 years, I've watched many a child grow up.
I know you have. I know you've probably got repeated generations now being involved.
And
with the show.
teaching young girls. Well, for 11 years, I taught the fourth graders in town how to write their own play.
Oh, good.
And they made about $3,000 or $4,000 a year for their high school senior trip. So that was, and I still have those kids that come back to me.
Yeah.
You know, and it's good to see them. Good to see them again.
That's great. I have friends that from Waco that would appear in Salado Legends show. Dale and Anita Allen. I know you.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Yes.
them. Of course, Anita has gone on, but yeah, I know they loved doing that show.
Oh yeah.
And so I know you have a lot of performers that.
And both of them played many parts.
Right,
in the
exactly.
play.
They were different
It
parts.
wasn't the same thing every year.
Yeah, right. Well, so I presume you have, kind of a core group of folks that you can count on every year that are going to help do what needs to be done to get things in motion. When do you start rehearsals?
Usually it's the first part of June.
Uh-huh.
So we usually have almost 2 months to get it
Okay.
ready to play.
And so your performances are going to be in July, right? In August?
It's always the last 2 Saturdays in July and the first Saturday in August.
There you go. So it's only 3 shows.
Mm-hmm.
And how can folks get tickets?
Well, you can go to the newspaper, the Temple Telegram, and they have it advertised, and you can buy your ticket through that. And you don't have to, before you get there. Or you can buy it when you get to the show and buy it then. But a catered meal is usually served in our park. Also, I was instrumental in getting the Texas Parks and Wildlife interested in the area, and they built a half-mile-long walking trail through
It's
our
a huge
wooded area.
of property that's involved there.
It's
in Salado.
it's almost 14 acres.
Yeah, it's huge.
And when I took it over, it was 7.
Uh-huh.
And so we've gained a few acres over the 30 years.
Yeah.
But that brought in another aspect of making money to continue keeping the amphitheater in good repair.
Right.
As the walking trail, I wondered, well, it's great for people to come and take a walk through the half-mile-long walking trail, but we need to make some money on it, too.
Yeah.
To upkeep, because we've got to cut those, do a little gardening around there,
sure.
too.
Yeah.
And so I had belonged to the Institute of Outdoor Drama, and I knew people there,
Mm-hmm.
and it was stationed or anchored at the University of North Carolina. And so I went back to them and asked them for help, and they did give me help at first, and then they said, well, we need you on the board. I said, I'm here to learn. And they said, no, you'll learn a lot more by being on our board.
There you go.
And which was true. I did. I learned a lot. But that helped us get grants, and it helped us get the walking trail.
Mm-hmm.
But then going to the outdoor dramas for annual meetings brought me in contact with a lot of writers and songwriters, and I had written most of the songs for Salado Legends too.
Mm-hmm.
So consequently, it was very broadening to be on that board. But I learned a lot from the people that we had conferences at their headquarters and saw their plays all over the United States.
I was going to say, it's kind of a hallmark of small towns to have an outdoor drama or have a drama kind of depicting their history, a way to keep that history alive. I think it's wonderful.
The oldest one, I think, in the United States is Ramona in California.
Uh-huh.
And it was written, the author had written a book, and it was not being well sold. And so the theme behind the book was an Indian theme. And she couldn't get that over. So she thought, well, I'll just turn it into a play. And she did so, and then all of the actors close to there in Hollywood wanted to be in the play.
Wow, yeah.
And this was a wonderful amphitheater, no seats. You sat on a blanket on the hilltop, And so that was the oldest, and I think that's almost 100 years old now.
I'm going to say continually running, huh? Yeah, that is really cool. That's cool. But 30 years for Salado Legends, which is just so exciting to even say. And it's just delightful to get to speak to the woman who wrote this wonderful show. So what times are your performances? You just have in the evening because it's outside and
right.
a little hot in Texas.
That's right. And the scenery and the wagons and the horses and the carriage and and all of the hot costumes too.
I was going to say the costumes, when you think of that time period, long sleeves and high necks and hoop skirts and all that sort of thing. So yeah.
So it takes a lot. I found out how the soldiers in the wool uniforms made it and how they didn't just pass out. But because they were running and, people are seated and it's much cooler. But the soldiers are running and doing battle, and they take crushed ice and wrap it up in like a dish towel and tie it around their middle.
Yeah, that helps to
underneath their costume.
Helps to cool them off. Yeah, necessity, the mother of invention. Yeah. Well, this really is. It's wonderful that what you've been able to do, and Salado is so historic, and there's so many wonderful stories. When my granddaughters come for a visit, in fact, they will be here across those weekends. So I think we got a family trip planned to Salado so my girls can see. But I showed them the mermaid statue, and of course have the book that I would read them the story, The Legend of the Mermaid. I mean, there are just so many wonderful aspects to the history of Salado.
I brought you one of my books.
Oh, did you?
Uh-huh.
Oh, thank you.
So you can have your own.
Okay. Oh, that's delightful. Yeah. Well, I'm really excited about it, and looking forward to seeing the show this year. Is there anything particular in this production, since obviously you're in rehearsals, that we need to look for?
I can't think of anything that is special this year above any other year.
Mm-hmm.
Every year we have some of the old people that have been there for 30 years, and then we have new people coming in too. In one family, there are 3 generations of their family in Legends. So
That's special.
and a lot of them come and that's their summer entertainment.
Right. Well, I'll look for the gentleman, see if he's seeing it for the 20th time now.
Well, it's quite an experience, and I hope you will come and bring the girls.
Oh,
bring
listen,
your grandchildren.
I'm looking forward to it. I just think this is great. Of course, they already know how much I love Salado, and
At
going
the
to
same
visit.
time that this Salado Legends was going on, I was also helping the fourth graders, and I also was an alderman for the city of Salado.
Mm-hmm.
So I was
Wearing a lot of hats.
but everything that I was doing was helping with the new songs that I'd be writing for the new people that came in and had wonderful voices.
Yeah.
So
So that's what I'm saying. I mean, you're continually retooling and adding to, taking things out, editing, and so forth of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, this is great. And so you say folks can go on the Tipple Daily Telegram website, I guess, to purchase tickets.
Yes,
That's
correct.
probably the best plan. Is it just open seating, or are they reserved seats?
No, it's open seating.
Okay.
And any place that it used to be like a Greek theater.
Mm-hmm.
But then Fort Hood gave us some old seating that they had. And my husband was an engineer, civil engineer. And so we accepted those old seats and he put them in. And he built several of the buildings, designed and built some of the buildings that we needed to.
So you have some permanent buildings there as well,
and permanent chairs.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I'm looking forward to see the Legends of Salado coming up. And again, those dates are when?
That's July the 22nd, July the 29th, and August the 5th.
Okay. Very good.
Dinner is at about 7:30, and then the show begins at 8:15.
Excellent. All right, Jackie, I like to end these little visits with a little questionnaire similar to the one that the late, great James Lipton would use on Inside the Actor's Studio, and this is my take on it. So I'll ask you, what is your favorite word as a wordsmith?
My favorite roles?
No, word.
Oh, word. What is my favorite word?
Mm-hmm. You have a favorite word?
Well, not that are in the play.
No, just
okay.
Yeah.
I just learned how to spell ratatouille.
That's a good word.
And I had a friend who brought some vegetables over to me, and she and I were on the tourism board for many years. And she said, "I've got too many vegetables. Would you take some of them?"
Some
and
pretty
I said,
good squash, I bet.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I said, "Oh yes, thank you." And so my son-in-law was retiring from work, and so we were having a family dinner. So I made a big pan of ratatouille with all of the garden vegetables, and then when I wrote to them a thank you note for the vegetables, I said, you know, what I did with all the vegetables is I made a big pot of ratatouille. And I thought, how do you spell ratatouille?
It's one of those French words. Okay, do you have a least favorite word? Word you just...
Yeah, no, I can't. That's my least favorite word.
Yeah. I hear that a lot. What turns you on creatively or spiritually or emotionally? What kind of get your engine running?
Oh, reading something that I really did like when I'm researching, and how to turn that into the play.
Yeah.
And so that it's done well, very quietly. It doesn't just hit you in the face.
Right.
But it's done over and you can see it coming on. And so maybe that's it.
Yeah. What turns you off creatively or spiritually or emotionally?
Well, when I have to fold clothes out of the dryer.
There you go.
Or
Folding
wash
clothes.
dishes.
Right. I get that. What sound do you love the most?
What sounds?
Mm-hmm.
Music.
Yeah.
And a lot of the music, I write a lot of poems, and the poetry has meant a lot to me through the years. And so I take those songs, those old songs, and turn them into the old poems, and turn them into a song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's fun. But I don't play any instruments, so I have to get somebody else to help me put
Sure.
the sound in. And one day I got a telephone call from one of the young kids. He was just a kid. I think he was about 25, and he was putting the sound to some songs for me. And he said, "I don't know exactly what you want here." And he was in a wheelchair, and it was hard for him to get out. So I said, "I'll be right there." And I grabbed a basketball, and I went over and knocked on the door and walked in, and I said, "This is what I want. Meet me tonight at Table Rock." He said, "Got it." He was marvelous.
Yeah.
He was marvelous.
Yeah.
With just that. He put the song together. He put the music to the song.
Oh, man. That's amazing. Is there a sound you just hate? Don't want to hear that.
Oh, well, there was a sound the other night at rehearsal, and one of the girls screamed,
Oh,
and we all turned around, what's wrong?
yeah.
And there was a big, it was some kind of a bug.
Oh, gosh.
that had landed on her head,
Oh.
and she was
bless
hollering
her
and
heart.
trying to get that bug. Yes,
Yeah.
that's the sound
Okay.
I don't like.
Yeah, I don't like it. What other profession would you like to have tried? Is there something that you...
Well, for many years, I worked for the government
Mm-hmm.
and as an accountant, and so I've had that, and I've been a mother twice, and I loved that.
Yeah.
And I don't know what else I want to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I haven't even thought of. I haven't had time.
Okay. Yeah, you've been busy with the play. What job or profession do you know you would not want to try? Thanks, but no thanks.
Oh gosh, I don't know. When I was an alderman, I was put in charge of the city streets
Yeah.
and potholes and ordering all the material to fix the streets, because at Table Rock I had the room to store all of the gravel and the pea gravel and the sand.
Right.
And so I didn't realize when I said, yes, I do that, that
What you
I
were signing
also
up
had
for.
to lead those big trucks in that had
Oh,
brought
yeah.
all of the gravel.
Oh.
And I'd be ready to go to a meeting in high heels and lipstick, and I was leading these huge trucks in to bring
That's
gravel.
so funny. You mentioned you served as alderman or city council there. I interviewed a couple of ladies, and that was one of the things they said they would not want to do is to be on the city council. So that's so funny. This is just a delight. So one final question: when you arrive at the pearly gates, what do you want to hear God say to you?
Welcome.
Yep. Well, I tell you what, it is just a delight to hear the story behind the Legends of Salado show that is coming up the last 2 weekends in July, the first weekend in August. They're at the amphitheater in the village of Salado, and don't miss it. It's going to be, in fact, see it year after year after year. Thank you, Jackie Mills. Thank you for your talent and for your willingness to share some time with us here today.
Thank you, Ann.
And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time on Central Texas Life. Bye-bye.
Central Texas Life with Ann Harder is part of the Rogue Media family. Be sure to check out our other shows at roguemedianetwork.com. Please rate this show 5 stars on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Join us again soon for more Central Texas Life with Ann Harder. This has been a Rogue Media Network production.